Hello, everyone. This is Rosie, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of my podcast called My Intrusive Thoughts. Well, I almost thought that I would not be able to sit down and record for a while after the kind of week I've had. And I know it's a very morbid start to an episode, but I think after clicking on the episode and reading the title, you would probably have guessed that this is not going to be a very fun topic to discuss that I have here for you today. I mean, I'm trying to make it informative, but I think there's a lot of mixed feelings I have about this topic today, but I guess we'll just roll with it because sometimes you just have to talk about the bad things. Sometimes you have to address the elephants in the room, and with this sort of topic, there being a couple of elephants in the room at the same time, so I guess there's going to be a lot to talk about. But we're gonna try and keep it light and sort of easy to digest because I don't want to get too graphic because I've already had a very, very emotionally taxing week and I just want to sort of unwind with you guys here. So let's get into it. Sometimes you just have these moments where you're lying in bed and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't really, fall asleep because there's a lot going on in your mind and you're not consciously aware of your train of thought because there's like a lot of stuff, a lot of traffic, but at the same time, you're very aware of your state of being, your mental state, your physical state. And it's kind of hard to describe. If you've not been through it, you probably wouldn't be able to, sort of relate to it. But those moments where you're sort of floating in the middle of, losing it all and then also being hyper aware of everything, it's it's a journey. I mean, it's an experience. That's the least I could say about it. And I've been kind of having a couple of those lately. And I guess there's a lot of different things that have triggered these sort of nights for me where I'm just lying awake in bed and thinking to myself, what the hell? Why am I still awake? Why am I thinking about these things? For example, like the other day, it was like 4 in the morning, right? And I'm trying to sleep. Like I'm actively trying to sleep. I shut my eyes, no other light source. And there's like the soothing varying of the fan in the background. And, my sheets are at the right temperature. And I'm wearing enough clothing to not be too hot or too cold. And it's like, it's perfect set up for a good night's sleep, but it just won't come. And I'm just lying there and thinking to myself, what the hell? And then my brain just starts to like wander, right? And then I'm thinking back to, the episode that I uploaded earlier last week, and I'm like, oh, there were some technical glitches in those episodes, right? And I'm just like, how do I fix that? But then, another thought comes barreling into my head, and it's that I've been listening to this other podcast from this very nice lady, and the way she talks, she's like so put together, she's so sophisticated, like she's so fluent, and she has this very soothing voice and everything, and I love listening to her, and she calms me down and everything. And then I'm like thinking about that, and then I'm like, do I sound like that? I mean, in my podcast? And I'm like, how do people perceive my podcast? And I'm like, I don't think I am that soothing or, that nice to listen to, because I hate my voice on recording, if I haven't said that before. And then I'm like, do I even, qualify to be a podcaster? Because like people have all these elaborate, setups, and they have like this amazing, a whole team that helps them record a podcast, edit a podcast, pitch it out to audience and work on the PR and all that. And over here, it's just me and my little, cheap as hell microphone and my laptop, and that's it. One man team, and I'm doing everything. And sometimes it's, good, sometimes it isn't. And I'm just rolling with it. And then the final thought that always, always, always trumps all the other thoughts. And I'm like, do I even deserve to do this? Like, people out there are putting up so many good things, and compared to that, my stuff is mediocre at best, subpar at best. So, should I be even doing this? And then I just sort of, tumble down into this spiral of all sorts of other negative things and insecurities that I have, like sitting in the back, just waiting to pounce, waiting to be made known to me through my subconscious and unconscious. And I'm just like, yeah, I think I am a waste of space and whatever. Now, a lot of times, it's sort of hard to put a full stop. Once you start thinking about these things, once you are on that, ship where it's set to sail and it's just like going, 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 and in the back of your mind that ultimately it's gonna sink, but you can't do anything about it. You're just like, yeah, you're just there, you're sitting there hyper aware of the fact that any minute now your brain's going to conjure up the most messed up scenario ever, giving you the most worst case possibility out there that could happen, and it's going to probably kickstart your flight or fight response maybe, or probably activate your tear ducts, and you're probably going to end up having a meltdown or whatever. But then you're still doing it, and you're physically you know unable to stop that flow of thoughts and those intrusive thoughts, those negative, vile thoughts that just make you feel like the worst possible human to ever exist. And like, yes, now I'm sitting here and I'm talking about it and I'm trying to have like a third person perspective about all of this. But when you are the one doing it, when you're the one going through it, it's very hard to stop, take a step back, and sort of, you know, um, rationalize these thoughts, right? And I guess it takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of discipline and help from the right people, sometimes adopting to the right sort of exercises or approaches to be able to combat this. But not everybody has the privilege of even identifying this as a problem itself, much less being able to figure out if there is a way to sort of make it disappear or lessen the frequency of these thoughts. So, what am I even talking about exactly? I'm talking about the art of overthinking. And I know it sounds very fancy when I say it like that, but ultimately it just means that you have these crazy, weird, negative, very intrusive thoughts that come into your mind, always on the side of being extremely repulsive to being downright abhorrent and horrifying, that shake you to your core and present the worst possible thing that could happen to you in a way that you just feel like, yeah, this is it, every single time. And I mean, when you think about it, a lot of us, actually I think most of us have, at some point in life gone through this, gone through the phase where you have these thoughts in your head and you're feeling low and you're just, vulnerable to these thoughts and you don't know what to do. And I'm here right now today to sort of help you understand this, this phenomenon, try to, figure out what it is, why it is, and how you can help combat that. And I hope that by the end of this episode, some of you guys would be able to figure these things out for yourself, sort of, identify stuff that works for you, doesn't work for you. I just hope that this is helpful for you in some capacity. So, what causes, these overthinking habits? I mean, there are different, plausible causes that can make you overthink, make your mind go into overdrive. And I think the biggest factor would probably be stress. Because when you're stressed, your sympathetic system in overdrive. You don't know what you're feeling. You're not consciously aware of things sometimes. You glaze over things, or you're sometimes hyper aware of things. And because in stressful situations, your fight and flight responses kick in. So the ultimate goal that your brain has is to just somehow breathe in, breathe out, keep your heart working, keep your brain cells working. That's it. Every other thing just flies out the window. And in those moments, it's hard to think of, calming down, you know. A lot of times when somebody's going through a panic attack or an anxiety attack, you might feel the urge to say, calm down, as if that's going to help. As if telling somebody who is going through a panic attack actively that they should calm down and that would help. No, of course not. When they're in that moment, they're not aware of what's happening. A lot of times they feel like they don't have a control over their own bodies, let alone their minds. So that doesn't help, right? So it's very important. It's imperative for the person who is going through these things to be able to figure these things out for themselves, right? Because you won't have people around who know how to deal with these things all the time. Anxiety is also, obviously, I think, a cause and a consequence at the same time, because it can manifest in so many ways, right? For me, for example, if I was going to be a little personal with you all today, um, I experience anxiety in the form of jittery hands, um, a heart racing. Like, I get palpitations, like the kind where it feels like my heart is literally in my throat, and I excessively have like I I I, I sweat excessively, and I just feel low. Like, it feels like I get phantom chest pains as well. It's like something is, sitting on my chest like a very heavy sort of load, and trying to compress my ribs in and crush my heart. And yes, it sounds dramatic, but this is true. This happens, and in that moment, these are not phantom. These are, they might, yeah, the origin is psychosomatic, but for me, it's as real as being stabbed in the heart, right? These are not things that I figured out right away. When I started having these, it took me a while to sort of figure out, to learn. Every time I would get an anxiety, episode, and I'd be like, okay, this is what I was going through, and I would analyze it in my head and be like, okay, whenever I start feeling jittery, whenever I can't sit still, in a place, whenever I feel like, when I start scrolling through my phone apps, like I'm jumping from Instagram to Snapchat to Facebook to Twitter, like in the span of 5 minutes, and I can't stick to, scrolling through one app, or when I'm like just skipping through songs, or when I'm trying to read something and I can't focus on one line, and just I have to go back and reread again, or when I'm watching something and I just can't take it in because my mind is in overdrive. That's when I know that I'm anxious and I need to do something. So I guess these are my triggers, but I guess a lot of people have different triggers, and the biggest thing is to be able to figure out what it is, how your anxiety, your stress manifests. I have had a phase where I would just cry. When I was anxious, I would just not be able to stop crying. Every single thing, every small, every big thing, I would just cry. Now that has sort of, gone away, but I still feel down. I get very, very moody, very cranky when I'm anxious. And I just know, like, when I start feeling like that, I know that I'm anxious and I need to rest. I need to calm down, whatever it is. I need to give myself a break and give my mind a break. But it's easier said than done, yeah? It's easier said than done, because how do you stop that? How do you tell yourself that it's okay, you're not gonna die today or any minute, your loved ones are safe? Because my biggest trigger is the thought that something would happen to my family or my loved ones or my friends or whatever. And it's an intrusive thought. I always have it in the back of my head. I'm always thinking, because of some things that have happened in my life, um, because of some very traumatic experiences that I've had in terms of losing loved ones. um, I just always have this intrusive thought in my head where I'm like, oh my god, something's gonna happen. and one of my loved ones is just gonna disappear. And I know that I'm trying so hard not to, you know, bring all this up, but I'm trying to just explain the kind of things that lead up to, me being jittery and anxious and overthinking and stuff. And these things are obviously part of life, these experiences, but yes, they can hurt. They mentally scar you, and yes, it takes a lot to heal, to come out of that. And you just need to have the willpower, you just need to have the courage to do it at the end of the day, because this is very taxing. I tell you, these thoughts, overthinking everything, it's it's a lot to take in. And sometimes I feel like I'm a broken record when I talk to my friends. I had like a similar episode some days ago, and I've just kind of been trying to recover from that. And I remember that I was talking to my best friend, and he lives in the UK, so he is very busy mostly during the day. So I mean, I don't really get to talk to him all that much, but at night he just, for some reason, he kind of felt that something was wrong with me because I hadn't texted him the entire day. Usually I just bombard him with Instagram memes all day, and then he gets home from work and he has like, it's like a little best friend homework he has to do, where he's like, he goes through all those memes during the day. So I didn't send him anything the entire day, and he texted me and he's like, "Are you okay? What's up?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." Like, I felt in that moment that telling him that I'm feeling anxious, or that my heart just feels like it's gonna burst out of my chest, it felt like I felt like a broken record, and I did not want to say that. I did not want to voice that, just because I felt like saying it over and over again loses its meaning, its significance. And I felt ashamed, to admit that something had happened in the day that had triggered me so much so that I felt paralyzed, as if I couldn't do anything. And I hated myself for letting that particular thing take over my entire mood, my entire day's sort of whatever I was supposed to be doing, because I just felt so sort of trapped in my head. I ended up doing nothing the entire day because it had triggered me so much. So I was anxious. I was angry at myself for being anxious. And he was just like, just say it, whatever's on your mind, say it. And, I was just trying to not, say it, because I felt annoyed at myself for saying that I'm anxious. And because how do you explain to somebody that you're anxious over something that your brain has conjured up about something that hasn't even happened? But your brain's making you think that, oh, this could happen, and then this would happen, and then this would happen, and then you're just going to be heartbroken, or you're going to be sad, or whatever. So your brain's cooking up scenarios that would probably be your worst nightmares, and then making you live through those different possibilities, and tell you that, oh, if this happened, you're going to feel this. If that happened, you're going to feel that. Like, why? And yeah, so, but then he's like, whatever it is, just say it. It's not like it's gonna change anything. Just voicing them, maybe getting them out of your system, would help you. So I just went on this like little rant. I told him what had happened, and then he tried to calm me down. And he's not the best when it comes to sort of consoling people, but he still tried his best, and I appreciate that so much. And yeah, that made me realize that talking ultimately helps. So for the past few days, I've just been trying to vocalize what I feel. And I think it has kind of helped. It has sort of made me think about all these things to a lesser extent. And just vocalizing them, putting it out there in the open, has, proverbially flushed these things out of my system, flushed these thoughts out of my system. And yeah, I feel better. I mean, so when this happened, I sat down and thought to myself, I need to really look this up. What's the scientific theory behind all of that. And I found a lot of stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of information about these things out there. There's a lot of amazing, cool websites and articles and blog posts that explain these things to you and break them down so that you understand them, and also provide you with helpful information and maybe contacts, so that you can find and seek help for yourself. So, there's this interesting sort of thing that I came across, and it was that there's an actual name for this, like a very cool, fancy term for overthinking, and it's called analysis paralysis. I really found that interesting because it makes so much sense, because when you look at it scientifically, what happens with your brain when you're under stress. So your brain stops thinking because it's in so much stress that it halts your thinking process. And then it sort of plunges you into this little loop of thinking about the worst case scenarios and just thinking and not doing anything about it. For example, you're under stress, maybe, you're under attack, like a physical attack, So your brain is going to shut down all other thoughts, and all you're going to focus on is the fact that somebody's trying to murder you. And you're going to be paralyzed with fear. This term that you get paralyzed with fear. What's that? What does that mean? It means that fear takes away, robs you of the ability to do something. It makes you feel stuck in a particular moment, in a particular mindset, that you are so stressed that your brain just gives out. You just don't know. Your body gives out, and you don't know what to do with yourself. And that's exactly what overthinking also does to you, essentially, because it's also stressing your brain out, right? It really made me think about how stress can be anything, right? Your brain could be stressed about anything, and all of that is valid, right? Anything that is taking away the power from you to decide, taking away the power for you to act, is paralyzing, and it's scary to think about. Well, also going through this, website, I was looking at like different theories as to why people overthink, or what are the other factors and causes that lead up to this particular mind frame or state of mind. And I found quite a few, and some of them really make sense. One of them was parenting, the kind of environment you grew up in, and it makes sense because if you come from a background where you've been mollycoddled by a parent, that's I'm taking the exact words from the website. It said that being mollycoddled by your parents, or having overly strict parents growing up, where they did not express themselves clearly to you, so that you had to always guess what they were feeling, and they would punish you. And because of that, you were always sort of very aware of your actions, and you were always thinking of ways in which to please them in order to not get punished. And that causes anxiety to build up, obviously, because when you're always treading on eggshells around people, when you're not sure about how they feel, and you're always having to second guess what to do and what not to do, it can have devastating effect on your brain, on your personality, on your self-confidence, on your anxiety levels, on your stress levels, because ultimately that is going to cause you stress, because you don't know anything. That you don't know, that you cannot predict, can be a cause of stress, that can be a cause of anxiety. There were other things like not having the sense of your identity being mirrored by your parents, which means that them telling you all the time that, oh, you're still a kid, you don't know what you're doing. They're always spoon feeding you how to live your life, so much so that you just naturally expect them to make decisions for you, and you don't know how to make decisions for you. It gives you anxiety to step out, speak for yourself, fight for yourself, and that can cause you anxiety. That can make you overthink your decisions because you're not confident in making them, you're not used to making them. And then also the fear of being humiliated, or the fear of shame, that can cause you to overthink a lot. And all of this makes sense, right? All of us have somehow been affected by these things at some point in our lives, and we can relate to these causes, these factors. And so the question, begs, how do you how do you heal from this? Because you know what, I was talking about this with a friend, and I termed this as childhood trauma, because yes, this is traumatic as a child to go through. The fact that you're living in constant anxiety as a child is a form of trauma. And in a desi household, if you'd say that, if I go up to my parents and I'm like, you traumatized me as a child by being overly strict, or not listening to me and not validating my identity as a child, and not giving me the autonomy to think for myself, to make decisions for myself, they would probably kick me out of the house, because this is like the biggest offense. Telling your parents that they've done something wrong. I'm not trying to start beef with anyone. I'm not trying to say that, oh, all Desi parents are like that, or whatever. I'm just saying that in a Desi household, there's a bigger chance of this having happened. It's like it's more common in Desi households for children to go through this, because I don't know how else to put it, but I mean, should I say that it's part of the culture? Like, I don't want to say that it's part of the culture, but a lot of us grew up in certain, rules and, stuff like that. And a lot of us have experienced this sort of thing growing up. And some of us made it out without all this, baggage. But some of us were not that lucky, and we suffer with all this, mental trauma that we went through. So, yes, it sounds dramatic, but yes, it's not that dramatic. But at the same time, when you think of it, it affects your life. It affects the standard of your life. It affects the quality of your life. So I think it is a big deal. It should be spoken about. It should be voiced out, because I feel like, I don't know. Lately I just have been saying this a lot about parenting, and uh, how to sort of bring about a better coming generation. I don't know why I'm so fixated on that, but I feel like as a generation that has learned and evolved to communicate, to break these toxic cycles of misogyny, of being treated in unfairly, and the generation that has stepped out of all those traditional cultural restraints and found their own identities and found their own voices. I feel like it's our duty to continue to build a better future and to strive for it. And how do I do that? I sit back, I evaluate myself, I evaluate everyone around me, and figure out what are the things that I should not be doing, that were maybe done to me or done before me. Because from what I've learned, especially in a Desi society, is that for such a long time, especially women, we were, told glorifying details of women, our ancestors, women of the past, who went through abhorrent abuse, horrifying abuse, and we're told to learn lessons from them. And what kind of lessons? Lessons of patience, lessons of, oh my god, she was such a good lady, she went through all of that, her husband abused her, her children were like that, she went through that, her in-laws were like that, that happened to her, that happened to her, and look at her, she didn't say a word, she just took it all in, and she never spoke about it, she never complained. And I don't want that to happen to us. I don't want us telling our daughters that. I don't want our sons learning that. I want the next generation to be able to, get up and say, if this happened to this woman, shame on you for not speaking about it. Shame on you for, glorifying her struggles and making it sound like a field trip, instead of condemning that, instead of saying that, no, this should not have happened to her. And again, I've gone off tangent, which I tend to do a lot, but these topics trigger me so much. Anyways, as I was saying, so I feel like sitting back and trying to figure out these triggers is one of the major steps. that we can take towards healing, towards a better future for ourselves, towards, you know, a space, a time when these things, these triggers would not make you lose your mind, where you wouldn't look at somebody's, you wouldn't be watching a show with somebody dying and just like go into shock thinking about anything and everything that can go wrong with you or your loved ones. And yeah, it's a slow process. It takes a lot of time to heal, and I feel like going to therapy is one of the biggest things. And personally, a lot of you probably would be thinking, okay, she seems very traumatized. Have you gone to therapy? No, I haven't. Because of, my life uh, as a med student, I just had so much on my plate to even think of going to therapy, which I think is a bad thing. I should have, whatever the stakes or whatever the circumstances were, I should have seeked help. But I'm planning to. I'm gonna probably try and get therapy and see maybe a therapist, and try to figure this out and seek help, because I have realized that, being self-aware is not enough. Me knowing that I need therapy is not enough. I need to actively reach out and, do something, um, to for this to go away, for me to feel better, for me to heal. Over the course of the past, I don't know, decade or so, since I've had this anxiety issue, um, I have figured out a few ways that I can reel myself in, ground myself, and, bring myself back to reality and stop myself from spiraling. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But I mean, I just want to share them with you because I feel like they might help some of you. I think the number one thing is trying to sit down and acknowledge the fact that something is wrong. A lot of times when you're jittery, when you're anxious, when you're panicked, you don't want to, accept that, because accepting somehow equals defeat. It equals giving away that power of knowing yourself. Because when you're anxious, you don't know what is going on. That's the biggest thing, right? You're lost. And just accepting and acknowledging the fact that you're lost, it does wonders for you. But your brain won't tell you that. Your brain's gonna be like, no, you're okay, whatever. This is nothing. You're not losing your cool, whatever. Girl, keep doing what you're doing. But that's not how you're supposed to go about it. You're supposed to sit down, tell yourself, okay, I need to take a breath, okay? Deep breaths, in and out, in and out. When you're done doing that, calm yourself down. It's important to sort of, regroup your senses. So you start with your hearing, you start with your listening, and your feeling, your toes, your fingers. That always helps me. Like, I always sit down and count my fingers, count my toes, and, look around, turn my head, and stretch my muscles a bit, because obviously when you're stressed, your body goes into overdrive, right? And it can cause your muscles to go stiff, and for you to be extra thirsty, or, for you to feel constipated sometimes. Yes, constipation can be a consequence of stress as well. So, I try to drink lots of water, because that also helps sort of calm you down, hydrate yourself. And yeah, that's one way to basically, acknowledge and tackle this monster, this elephant in the room. Especially when it comes to overthinking, I feel like it's very, it's a good practice to be mindful, to tell yourself that um, whatever thought you're having, like for example, I had this intrusive thought in my head that uh, somebody that I love is gonna die tomorrow. So I get this intrusive thought in my head over and over again, in a day, because I'm anxious. And so I think recognizing the fact that it's an intrusive thought, and that it does not mean that it's going to happen just because you're thinking it. Telling yourself that is very important. Telling yourself that this is an intrusive thought and you should not let it overwhelm you can help you sort of, rein that in, rein that fear in, rein that powerlessness in, rein that frustration in, and just pinpointing the fact that this is a thought. and a thought alone. This does not mean anything. It can help sometimes, you know. Other than that, I feel like fencing your thinking process, like your time to overthink, it sounds funny, when I say it like that. Fencing your thought process, like, tell yourself, okay, from 9 o'clock to 9:30, you can freely overthink. But after that, you're done. No more overthinking. This is essentially what I'm actually talking about. Yes, you set yourself a timer, on your phone, or just like, verbally tell yourself that, okay, right now I have the time to overthink. Go ham, okay? Go to down with those intrusive, ugly thoughts. But then, when you're done, after a specific time, you tell yourself, that's it. No more overthinking for the day, Rosie. You're done for the day. That was it. You've overstepped your quota of, overthinking, intrusive thoughts. So bye-bye, okay? Now only positive thoughts, positive affirmations. Think about, I don't know, unicorns. For me, I'd probably think about Park Jimin. I would think about BTS because they cheer me up. And I would, I would force myself to think about the funny things that they've done or said. And they have like this show called Run BTS where, it's an entertainment show where they just do random crazy activities together, and I just usually binge watch that, or I would like maybe watch a comedy movie or something sappy or romantic to take my mind off, and it helps too. I mean, I'm not a therapist, so I can't tell you exactly what to do, but I'm just sharing all the things that help me personally to deal with this, sort of thing. So I would like you to take all of this with a grain of salt, because some of these things might work. Some of these things probably are not even helpful, but they have helped me, and so I felt like sharing it with you guys. Another thing that I have realized has helped me tremendously over the years is changing your perspective, at looking things. And I don't know how to, vocalize this, how to tell you this, but like just looking at things, thinking about something. For example, I want to go to a BTS concert. And instead of thinking that I can never go to a BTS concert because they'll never perform in Pakistan, and, I'll never get to see them live, I instead force myself to think that one day I'm gonna have enough money, I'm gonna be, rich, I'm gonna have the means, the resources to maybe fly out to, see BTS, or, maybe one day our country is gonna be stable enough and we're gonna have security and we're gonna have all sorts of, opportunities to bring them to Pakistan. So yeah, I tell myself that. So focusing on the things that you can't do, is only going to lead you to feel upset, sad. So why should I do that? Why should I not instead talk about or focus on things that I can actually do in a certain situation? Isn't that better? Isn't that more productive? And I know that it's still a lot, like it's easier said than done. But it's like these little things that eventually help you, right? So I think that trying it out is not gonna, there's nothing to lose, in trying these things out. And I think the biggest one that has helped me, although I'm gonna admit that it's very hard for me to follow this particular one, it is talking to somebody. Be it a therapist, be it your friend, be it your loved ones, your partner, whoever that you trust. It does wonders for you. See, the thing is, I'm the kind of person who is gonna be there for everybody around me who needs, an ear to listen, who needs a shoulder to cry on, and I would always be, you're always welcome to share your thoughts, your fears, your problems with me, and I would try my best to be a support to you, however you want me to be. If you want me to give you advice or just listen to you, I'm always, present. I'm always available. But when it comes to me, I just hate burdening other people with how I feel. Because I feel like everybody has their own things to deal with, and I just don't want to add to their problems. And I know this is stupid. It's literally that one joke that you see on Instagram all the time. Yes, I am that person. I would disappear. I would just go into my bubble, zone out, space out, ghost you until I'm feeling better, then come back as if nothing has happened. But I can't help it. It's so hard to tell myself that it's okay to share. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to just sit down and talk about these things with somebody. And it's taken a lot of working, a lot of self care, a lot of re educating myself and rehoning my reflexes for me to be able to get to a point where I can just, when I'm feeling bad, when I'm upset, for me to just open up my best friend's contact and be like, I should text her or text him. Um, but it has helped. Me and one of my other best friends, we always joke about this, and we're like, it's better to suffer together sometimes, just two miserable girls out there talking about all our traumas and just bonding over how shit our life is sometimes. So it's become a sort of tradition, I guess, like a thing between us to just, ghost each other, but then come back and then we're like spilling our guts to each other because we both respect that we both need time to sort of go through something and then, um, you know, take our time to reel it in and figure out what the hell just happened, and then we come back to each other and we talk about it and try to get each other's input. Sometimes we give each other advice, sometimes we just listen. And I love that I've been able to create that sort of space, safe space with somebody. And I hope that you guys can find that too, and I wish that those of you who don't have it, that you could create that for yourself. Also, if anyone ever wants to talk, share whatever they're going through with me, I'm always there to listen. I mean, that's the least I can do for you people. So you can always, find me on Instagram. I have an Instagram handle for this particular podcast. It's called my intrusive thoughts, and you can, find me there and we can talk. I'm always there to sort of, help you any way that I can. Um, Besides that, I feel like um, one of the biggest things that I have learned over the years is that don't think of yourself as your enemy. I feel like going through these things, going through these, being in this headspace, or having these thoughts sometimes, these negative thoughts, they can lead to a sense of self-loathing. They can make you hate yourself. I've been through that. Honestly speaking, I've hated myself at times for just overreacting, for saying and feeling things that normally people should not be feeling in certain circumstances. And I felt like, why am I being like this? Why am I so sensitive about certain issues, and why do I get triggered? And I loathe myself for it because I see other people going through their day, going through the same experiences, and not feeling it as badly or as you know vividly and intensely as I do. And sometimes, yes, it has made me feel ashamed of myself and feel myself to be the biggest fool on the planet. But I've also realized as I grow that it's part of life, and it's okay to have these emotions. It's okay to have these thoughts. It's okay to, not feel the best all the time. But what is not okay is for you to let these thoughts, let these behaviors define who you are. Let them dictate your life, because that is not who you are. Ultimately, you are bigger than that. You're bigger than that fear. You're bigger than that thought. The fear of, things going wrong, that anxiety, that, self-loathing, that anything and everything that hurts you. You're bigger than all of that. And you should always, always, always remember that. I've realized I've been rambling. Like, I've not just been talking, I've been talking so fast. And I'm probably gonna hate myself when I edit this, because sometimes I listen back and I'm like, is this even a podcast? It just sounds like being on the phone with somebody who is a chatterbox who just wouldn't shut up. So you just tune them out. So I hope you guys don't tune me out, because I've tried to make it as engaging as I possibly can. I don't know how to do that though. honest. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how to be, um, how to talk like I know what the fuck I'm saying. That sounds so fucked up, doesn't it? That sounds so stupid. Because I've just given you so many scientific facts and theories and talked about all this, learned stuff, but then I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about. No, I do actually. I mean, I'm kidding. I don't know. What the hell did I got myself into? Like, this whole thought is weird. But, anyways, I guess I'll end this episode here. It's just kind of being dark. I don't know. Not comfortable, I guess, but still something that I felt like I needed to talk about because this has been on my mind this past week. And I just felt like, um, I thought about people who might relate to me, and I needed to talk about this, on here, and to reach out and to tell you that you're not alone in these thoughts, you're not alone in these behaviors, you're not alone in this state of mind. I guess we all go through it sometimes, but what matters is that at the end of the day, you are bigger than all of this, and you can come out of it. And it's gonna take a while. It's gonna take a lot of work, hard work, to recognize these triggers, to be able to unlearn these patterns and behaviors, and find things that help you. And sometimes you're gonna fail. Sometimes you're gonna try everything and it won't get better. But then sometimes it will. And it's that hope that you need to stick with. That hope that you need to look forward to. And I guess at the end, I would just say that I'm so sorry if you felt that there's no way, because there is always a way out of it. And it might not, the opening at the end of the tunnel might not always be visible, but this darkness is going to go away. There's gonna be a brighter day ahead of you no matter what. So please don't lose hope. Please don't feel alone. And most of all, love yourself. Please, hashtag love yourself. Also, I don't know if some of you are probably BTS Army. I've just been finding ways to talk about them today because I'm just like so emotionally overwhelmed, and I've just watched 4 different live streams by one of the band members, Jungkook. He was on, and I usually do like this translation thing because I know how to speak Korean. So because the live streams are not dubbed, obviously they're not subtitled. So I do this like live stream translation thing on Twitter whenever a BTS member comes on. So I've been doing that for like 3 hours, and it was a lot of emotional. It was a lot of emotional stuff going on during that live, and I'm just overwhelmed right now. I'm giddy. I'm kind of like wrung out emotionally, but it's been quite an eventful day for me. So I've just probably rambled a lot, and I'm just, I don't know, in a weird headspace. But I'm okay, I guess. I will be okay if I'm not. So with that said, I would now take my leave, and I hope that you have a great weekend ahead, and I hope that you're staying safe wherever you are, and I hope that it gets better for you if you're not. Allah Hafiz.